to the Empower Together podcast. I'm Desirie Parker, your host, and today I am super excited to have with me Jim Huling. Jim is a world-renowned author, speaker, executive coach. He's dedicated his life to helping leaders and organizations achieve their potential. He has been a trusted advisor to CEOs and leaders all over the globe. He's coached something like 70,000 plus people. His number one best-selling book, 4 Disciplines of Execution. This is actually my second copy. I was telling him, I was like, I've got the first edition, now I've got the second edition, because I've used it in a book study before in leadership teams. And quite honestly, if you know what a wig is, make a comment, because you've been influenced by Jim too. And I don't mean the kind you put on your head. You know what I'm talking about. If you've put brainstormed wigs on a whiteboard, you know what I'm talking about. So, Jim, thank you so much for being here and just taking the time to talk to me. And last thing I want to say is Jim is actually also one of the nicest people I know. Like, he's just genuinely one of the sweetest people over the time I've gotten to spend time, the time that I've gotten to spend with him, and the time I've gotten to know him. He's just a genuinely nice person.
Goodness. Thank you.
And I'm just happy to have him here.
Now you've got me a little emotional. I wasn't expecting. Thank you. And I just trade right back. You know, you and I, we've known each other a little while, and I think we've known each other well. We're good partners in another program that we do outside of this. And so I feel like we have one of those friendships that feels like 10 years old, and it's probably about 7 months old or something, but it feels like I've known you a long time. And I just have great respect for the work you're doing in the world and the way you're trying to make the world a better place and bring us all into a place of wholeness and wellness and all the things you're doing. Really, really powerful work. And, it's a special privilege today to be able to share thoughts with you and maybe help all the millions of people who listen to your podcast.
Yes, let's hope. Absolutely. So we're going to start. I'm just going to ask you, you've been doing coaching and consulting and stuff like that a long time. You were with FranklinCovey, which we all know FranklinCovey for years. I carried their day planner for a very long time. My dad carried their day planner for his whole career. What made you go into a coaching consulting type of profession, one where you're helping other people build their lives and careers?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I'm grateful that you start here, because it kind of gives me a place to anchor anything I might say. The people that are listening would say, okay, well, I understand now. I know where he came from, so I can understand what he's doing now. Because if I recapped any part of my life, I would say, I have a big chapter of my life where I was an IT person. I sort of rose through the ranks and became CIO of a couple of very large companies in the world, and then I bridged from that to be CEO of a technology company for 11 years, and I loved that. That was also the place in my life where I utterly and completely burned out. Had to choose something different. We'll talk about that if you're interested at all.
Totally understand. Been there. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, all you gotta do nowadays is say burnout. We're all like, oh, let's have a club. Let's have monthly meetings. And CEO years, Desirie, you know this. 11 CEO years is like 22 in any other job. They're dog years.
Very much. They really
are.
And
it was a great company, and it was a great job. And 9 of those 11 years, I was incredibly happy. But when I hit the burnout point, I really, as I've done many things in my life, I couldn't do it gradually. I hit it head on, full tilt.
It's a wall. It is a brick wall.
So high, like yesterday, I walked down this same hallway to the same office to do the same job, and I was happy. And today I walked down the same hallway, and it's like, that movie where they yell out, "Dead man walking." That's kind of how I walked down that same hallway. So anyway, the light went off, and I really had to rescue myself in a very real sense. And so that's a moment when FranklinCovey enters my life, and sort of said to me in a very innocuous way, "Would you have any interest in teaching leadership all over the world?" And I'm like, is that a real question? That's got to be rhetorical, right? Yes, was the answer. Like, stand on your head, kind of. Yes. And then I had a wonderful period of 14 years. I got to be the global managing consultant for all of FranklinCovey. And I wrote 2 books, as you've so kindly mentioned so far, and gave messages, keynote messages, and coached and taught leaders all over the world. Everybody stopped counting when I got to 70,000 leaders. Even I was begging people to stop updating this number. It's just getting ridiculous. But when you're traveling all the time, and when you're in front of a different group, and it crossed 21 countries, it really was a very the number's probably even bigger than that. But it leads me to now finally really answer your question. All of that work was done in a one-to-many construct. It was me in front of a senior leadership team, or me in front of an entire organization, or me in front of an audience of 10 or 20,000 people giving a keynote speech, but always one-to-many. And it was wonderful. I mean, you can't say anything except thank you. You have an opportunity to sort of, have a moment like that. But it was also a little bit, you might be too young to get this reference, but it's sort of like, Bon Jovi sings "Living on a Prayer" every.
Oh yes, no, I'm not too young for that.
Well, and I'm not equating myself with Bon Jovi. Let me be clear about that to anybody, especially if they're got the video version of this podcast. But I do think you get a little tired of just offering up your best thoughts and then packing your bag and going to the next city and offering up your best thoughts, even though it's honorable work and it can be life-changing work for a lot of people. It does have a kind of shallowness to it that I began to feel. Now, I made it 14 years. Let's be clear. So I would get the Purple Heart anyway, and I never did really burn out at FranklinCovey. It's not the story, but I just began to long for a sense of deeper connection. And I realized 2 years ago when I retired from FranklinCovey, I realized that what I was wanting was to do the same kind of work, to have the same kind of impact, but to do it in the context where I and another person really got to know each other. We had quality time together, and there was a trust bubble over everything that we said and everything we did. And the only word I know for that, I hope it feels appropriate, is kind of an intimacy into one-on-one coaching that you just don't get in group type work, or frankly, being a corporate leader. So the minute I got started to do it, Desirie, I don't know if all my references sound so colloquial, but I was like a duck in water. I mean, I had finally found my place in the world, which is a strange thing to say. I mean, I hope you don't mind if your audience knows I'm 69 years old. I'm looking toward 70, and then, but it's so late in life to do finally the thing that I could say without a lot of drama, this is surely what I was born to do. It's just such a natural thing for me.
But that's great.
There's the whole story. It took me all those years to get to the place where now I've started the best chapter of my life.
That's awesome. And you've kept yourself in such good shape that you've got time to still do it. I didn't mention that, but Jim is also like really into his physical fitness. He's a 3rd-degree black belt in Taekwondo and does CrossFit. And so if you follow him on any of his social media, you'll see him like breaking his lifting records and stuff like that. So Jim got plenty of time ahead of him.
I hope so.
To do this work.
My mother used to say, "From your lips to God's ears." I would say, yes, please let that be true. It is interesting, Desirie, if you don't mind a little joke between us in front of all your listeners. I'm always a little surprised at how much attention, like I can write a post for LinkedIn that I think has life-changing value in its content. And I can put a simple video of me deadlifting a barbell, and the deadlifting video will get 10 times the amount of exposure.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing what you think is going to land and what actually does.
I guess so. And I'm not discounting it at all. I'm happy. No. I always hope that there are people in the world maybe who are facing their own obstacles or their own inner voices where they think, I'm too old to do this, or I don't have the education, I don't have the experience. I mean, we've all got some version of that voice in our head, and it'll start speaking the minute we think about doing something brave, So if there's anything at all from these crazy, 69-year-old guy lifting 300, 400 pounds, I hope it's that, that don't be scared of the thing that people say you shouldn't do, or you're too old to do, or even your inner voices to. Take a step, try it out at least. And you might end up like me and be amazed at what you actually can do. So there's some lessons from that part of life as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I would agree with that. I love seeing the videos. I'm seeing people comment and just be like, oh my
Oh, thank
gosh,
you.
it's so impressive
I had
because
one
it
this weekend. There
is.
were 18,000 comments on the video this weekend. So I don't
That's
know. I don't know
crazy.
what it is, but I'm going to keep using that channel because it seems like when people see somebody my age lifting a weight, they listen to what you have
Hmm.
to say. I'm going to use that as a platform to maybe say, yeah, here's something that could help your life be more of what you want it to be. So
Yeah.
thanks for calling that out for everybody.
No, absolutely. It's very motivational. It's very motivational to see somebody stick to such,
Mm,
such heavy goals. A lot,
mm,
not to,
mm.
pun there, but you know what I mean. Such such weighty goals. So they're that are so intense and so difficult to maintain, even for somebody in their 30s.
Yeah,
Those
it
are
can be.
those are intense goals.
I'm sure
So.
they seem that way. And this is funny. There's no plug in this at all. But I wrote a post just this very day about this morning. I was on the back porch of my house and it was raining, and I was just sitting there. There's a little bowl that my sweetheart puts out so the birds have water on the porch rail, and the
Mhm.
rain drop by drop was filling that bowl. I won't make this a long story, but just this morning I had this moment to what you're talking about, and I was watching that bowl fill drop by raindrop by raindrop by raindrop, and I don't know. Do you ever have these moments, Desiree, where I was like, good grief, there's a life lesson in what's
Yes.
happening there, and the point to me was each drop seems so insignificant. It's so
Mhm.
innocuous, a drop into this bowl, but then
Mhm.
you look back in a little while and the whole bowl is full and all the
Yes.
birds are gathered around the bowl and they're all drinking out of the bowl, and it just seemed like too perfect a metaphor to skip over that.
Mhm.
Yes, I am this year deadlifting 400 pounds is my current goal, and I'm 100% on target to make it this year. And I've hit many other records like that, which are unusual for a person my age. But if you slow motioned the video, if you just replayed my whole life, which we won't do, thank you to your listeners on this video, if you could watch it all in slow motion replay like ESPN, you would see exactly that same thing. You would say drop, drop, drop. You just see
Yes.
this. Just showed up for a workout this day. I tweaked my nutrition this day.
Mhm.
I ran even though it was raining this particular day. And in those micro views, they would look very mundane. It would be like,
Yes.
oh, I'm bored to tears. Oh yeah, sure. You went to class. You went to workout. But then when you zoom out from all that and you go from where I started to where I am, that's how we get there. So for me, this rain
Yes.
in the bowl this morning was this perfect forecast of this conversation I was going to have with you, which is
That's
about
awesome.
the cumulative power of small actions. If we just could
Mhm.
start small and stay with it. I don't mean to sound like, Tony Robbins, who I actually happen to like a lot,
Oh
but
yeah.
I think we could do almost anything if we could just learn
Yeah.
to start small and stay with it. That's really
Yes.
the key.
Yeah, just commit to those small actions, and I love that. I love water, period, and I just
Yeah.
I always notice that in like
Mm,
rivers or canyons or things like that, and I
mm,
always think that when I see those
mm.
rocks that are carved out of just thousands of years of water
Yes.
running
Yeah.
and things like that, and I'm like,
Mhm.
um it's
Powerful, isn't
something
it?
that yeah, it really is. It's something that flows and isn't forceful or normally. It isn't something
Yeah.
that's like
Yeah.
pounding at it with force. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
slow, steady stream of
Mhm.
movement that
Mhm.
carves out over
And
a long
soft,
period of
not
time.
not to quote Bruce Lee, but water is soft, and yet
Hmm.
it has the ability to carve the Grand Canyon. For goodness sakes. So it's
Yeah.
soft, but it's powerful. I take that as a really strong metaphor, especially in today's world. It's easy to be hard nowadays. It's easy to be mad about something. It's easy
Oh yeah.
to feel
Oh
like
yeah.
you've got to right all the wrongs of the world, and that everybody that doesn't agree with you is an idiot. It's easy to fall into that place. But I'm working with myself a lot now to say, can I just stay soft with that? Can I just
Hmm.
allow everybody to think what they think? I'll allow myself to think what I think, and then we find ways to be harmonious on this planet that we share, and over time the effect will be there. If the right things will carve their niche, and we'll all come together in some way better than we are able seem to be able to do today. At least that's my hope.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. And that's, kind of, I think life in general, all the little, actually not even little but small but big things over the course of my life. I mean, when, if you had known me 25 years ago,
Yeah.
you know, I was a much harder person than I
Mm,
am now.
mm,
Just
mm,
with much more anger and much more impatience and much
mm,
more
mm.
attitude and, and much
Sure.
more,
Sure.
harshness.
Mm,
But years of children and patience and
yes.
um, you know just life, just starts to wear some of those hard edges off after a
Mhm.
while. Just experience and you change over the years and become somebody completely unrecognizable
Mhm. To your old self.
to your old self,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
So,
is I know in my case is a good thing. I mean,
no, yeah,
I
me too. Me
it's
too.
definitely a good
Mm.
thing to now in my mid 40s be not who I was in my
Well,
20s.
we're all saying a silent blessing. Thank
Yes.
goodness I'm not who I was at 22 or whatever. But
Right.
I think it is true, and I don't know if this connects two of the things we've talked about so far already. But I think we all have a desire for connection. I think human beings are creatures that were designed to live
We are
in community.
created for connection. Absolutely. I
So
believe
then when
that.
we hit these divisive moments, which we certainly are in the United States, at least right now,
Hmm.
um, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion about everything. But when we go to our separate corners, the first thing that seems to happen is we start longing for the sense of connection we once had. And we get nostalgic about times when we were unified, when we did come together. And I'm not speaking any way politically here. I'm just saying, as
Yes.
creatures, I think we long for that. And so maybe that's the giant pendulum. We have times of
Hmm.
separation and divisiveness, and then the pendulum starts its slow motion back the other way where something happens or a
Hmm.
new idea takes hold or whatever. And we see that there's a path forward where we are stronger together. And I'm hopeful for that. But I think that's true of
Absolutely.
everybody. And I don't know if you'd agree with this, or you could accuse me of stretching this point just a little too far. But I think that's part of what happens in coaching. A lot of times people
Hmm.
come to me as a coach and they're coming because they've got a conflict or they've
Yes.
got a problem or they've said something or done something that they now regret and need a way to repair that and not make sure it doesn't happen again. But all that variety of things are just in impediments to the human connection, and we're just trying to wear those impediments down, bring the wall down enough where we can
Hmm.
reach over and say, hey, okay, I'm your friend, let's work together on this thing. And I
Absolutely.
think that's a lot of coaching. Well, frankly, is
I would
like that.
agree. I would agree 100% because after, at all my years of working in trauma care, working with
Mm,
victims of
mm,
trauma, that's healing takes place in relationship.
mm, mm,
That's the only way it takes
mm,
place.
great.
We can only heal from the things
Mm,
in our lives, the things that have happened to us, the things that have gone on,
mm,
by learning to feel safe and learning to
mm, mm,
trust
mm,
and
mm.
learning to accept support from those around us, and there is no other way to become more whole
Mm,
than
mm,
to form
mm,
relationships
mm.
and to allow ourselves to heal within those relationships.
Yeah. Wow, I love
We
that.
can't do that in isolation.
Yeah. So you can't go up to the mountaintop and sit in a cave for a year and suddenly become this different person and then think you're going to come back down and join the rest of us and hold on to whatever you had up the
No,
mountaintop. You
you might
can't.
have had some great thoughts. I mean, you may have had some really, you may have come to some really good epiphanies up there,
Mm,
but you're definitely not, connected and healed from whatever
that's right.
happened to you.
I
If
think
there was
that's so
something that
true.
happened.
I don't have your credentials nor your expertise in the
No,
field of trauma in and of itself, but I do get to work with a version of trauma, which are unhappy things that happen to people in the workplace,
absolutely.
or sometimes in life. People will come to me, but but in all of those cases, the word healing is the word. It's we have to find a way to we can't change what happened to us, but if we work at it, we can change how we responded to what happened to us, and we can form in a good way whatever decisions we make about what we're going to do to ensure that doesn't happen again, or how we're going to handle it differently the next time. Well, if you zoom up a level, your work and my work looks really similar then up at that level of distinction, because we very often got those same kinds of things to work on. And all
Absolutely.
the time I'm saying to my clients, they're like, I'm never speaking to him again. I'm never. Well, you work in the same department. This is going to be a hard resolution to hold on to, yeah, but I'm
Yes,
never
it
going to
is.
do it. And then all I can say is, well, okay, but permanently put that memory in the black bag that you're going to carry the rest of your life. And let me promise you, the bag gets really heavy over time. You stuff enough things in there that are unresolved and you just carry them. It's all of a sudden you're doing your own bad version of CrossFit because you've got 400 pounds of
It's
regrets.
more of a it's more of a Jacob Marley situation
Yeah,
with all the
that's beautiful. Isn't that a great metaphor? Yeah, I wear the chains I forged in life.
yes, when you got all
One
the
of my
chains
very
instead.
favorite metaphors, but so much truth in that story. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I very often use this black bag metaphor to say, can we please just one item at a time? Can we just pull them out of the bag and let's re-examine them and let's look at them in the clear light of day? What happened? How did you respond? How would you like to do it differently this time? And can you lay this down? Can we leave it out of the bag? And some people have two things in the bag. And so our work together is really not very difficult if they're
Mm-hmm.
courageous and willing. And then sometimes, there's 25 things in the bag. And we have to almost find a macro level approach to the resolution.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, the I've never seen anything more beautiful than the look on a person's face when the bag is finally empty. When all the resentments, all the regrets, all the things that they're mad about or that weren't done the way they thought they should have been, they make peace with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm being really careful here not to justify whatever happened. Whatever happened is
No, absolutely not.
but how
Absolutely
you
not.
go forward in your life in spite of what happened, that's the work I get to do. And I know the more
Yes.
things you can empty out of that bag, the lighter the bag is, and the look on people's faces when they finally let those things go. I mean, there really aren't words to describe it, but I know what I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about. It's a transformation that happens.
It really
The
is.
person finally sets themselves free from all the things they had decided to begrudgingly hold on to for their whole life.
Yeah. And it is. It's a very freeing. It's a
Mhm.
very freeing thing for people, and so that's really interesting because you obviously went from a very corporate um,
Mm.
training model. You spoke with leaders and CEOs and
Mm.
talked about execution. You talked about disciplines of execution
Mhm.
and wildly important goals and setting strategy
Yes.
for businesses, and that was your niche for a long time,
Oh, yeah,
for a
quite a lot.
very long time. And now moving into this
Mm,
relational model of coaching, is so different.
mm, mm,
But I think it's such a powerful model
mm.
to work with people on a one-on-one basis. And you've changed your whole brand around it, and
Uh-huh.
I think it's great. So um,
It's an interesting thing that I love the language that you use because yours is the language of these kinds of feelings and things to work on. You have the vocabulary that I don't have as good as you. But the thing that was a revelation to me was after 14 years and oh man, thousands upon thousands of times teaching people how to set goals and achieve them, to then become completely captivated about the human beings that were behind those goals and the dreams and fears and aspirations and longings of those human beings that were behind the title, that were behind the execution part of it. It
mhm.
became the most fascinating thing, to me. Not that setting goals and achieving them is not fascinating, because that's a
Of
science
course.
unto itself, and a lot of people in the world are suffering right now just trying to figure out, how to achieve a goal. But it is an amazing thing to realize that there's a whole other universe behind performance, which is the
Mhm.
person and their purpose. That's really the foundation for all execution. And so I came to that last in my career, but I sort of feel like it was appropriate. It's like I was working my way to the center of the earth, and
Yeah.
execution and strategy and leadership were all layers that I had to earn
Mhm.
my way through But when I
Yeah.
finally got to the core, it was as it always is. It was about the human
It was
being
about the person. Yeah.
and what is their sense of purpose and what brings them joy, and how do we make all that work? We have to achieve goals. We have to have successful businesses, and we all depend on those kinds of things. But we don't want to rationalize that in order I've got the income I want and the life I hate. We don't want that equation. That's not a win, right? And sometimes we
Yes.
can't flip it over the other way too. We can't say, well, the heck with the job. I'm just going to be happy all day. That doesn't work either.
No.
We have to find a way of integrating our work in our life in such a way that it feels good and it makes us happy and it gives us a sense that we're doing what we came here to do. That's really what I get to do. So I think that was the longest caveat ever to say. So it makes sense to me. When I look back, it makes. Do you know the Steve Jobs quote that says, "You can't connect the dots of your life looking forward. You can only, if
Yes,
you look backward, they'll all make sense." It's such a true. I'm a
it
poster
is.
for this, and then when I look back, I think, well, gosh, every stop along the way prepared me to be a coach of people in positions of responsibility. Um,
Hmm.
and so I'm grateful for every step along the way. I might have liked to get here before this age,
Right. I
but
know. Sometimes we wish those journeys were a little quicker.
well, I sort of do, although they say it's like Jenga, okay, pull one part of your life story out. You won't end up the same place. So I don't want that
That's,
either. I'm totally happy with where I ended up. But
yeah.
anyway, grateful to be surrounded by people like you who are doing good work and thinking thoughts like this and trying to, in our own way, help everybody have a
Yeah.
beautiful, happy, rich life. That's what
Yeah.
we're looking for.
That's following their purpose.
Yeah,
And so that they're setting goals that are meaningful for them.
that's right. That's right.
Because it's one thing to set a goal that you feel like you should be reaching,
Yes. Yes.
because okay, well, at my age, I
Mhm.
should, I
Mhm.
should. I had a therapist we used to work with that said, don't should yourself,
Yeah.
um, you know,
I got it.
and and it was, which is so true though. It's we get to a certain point and we're like, well, I should have
Mhm.
this level of
Mhm.
success right now, or I should
Mhm.
have this income level by now. But if we're not setting goals that have meaning to us or that
That's
are causing us to
right.
um, violate our own personal values, that don't sit right with us,
Yeah.
then
Or
we're
they're
going to be
proud
miserable.
of. Yeah, that I always think of this, and I don't know if this will work. You'll have to tell me if this language works with you, but I feel like fundamentally there's two ways to live your life. You can live your life outside in, so that you can sort of
Mm-hmm.
say, when I've achieved everything on the outside that I wanted to become or be known for, or the money I wanted to have, or whatever, then inwardly I can feel good about myself because my outside matches what I thought. And anybody who's ever tried this is shaking their head right now, listening to
Yeah.
you and me talk about it. Even if they're
Like,
driving in their
no,
car eating a sandwich, they're like, that doesn't work,
no, doesn't
because it's
work.
empty. And you end up living your whole life trying to uphold some kind of image that you think will make other people find you, more pleasant to be around or whatever, make you
Mm-hmm.
more successful. But the reality is you're just empty inside. And so what I try to do is reverse that whole equation. In fact, my
Mm-hmm.
whole coaching model is I call a whole person coaching model, and we
I
work
love
from the
that.
inside out. So if a person comes to me and says, "Listen, I got this goal to run a marathon, or I want to get promoted to CEO next year, and I need you to coach me on how I can make that happen," I say, "Absolutely, no problem. I'll help you with that." But we
Mm-hmm.
got to start in a different place than you're thinking. We got to start by, why do you even want to be a CEO? And what's the purpose that's driving you toward that, and what
Yes.
impact do you think you'll create, and what portion of the people you contact do you think you'll serve at the highest possible level? Those are all inside out questions. And I'm not bragging about Desirie. I'm just humorously reflecting that people are so
No.
shocked, like,
Yes.
really, we're going to talk about all that? All I wanted was 7 steps
Yes.
to get promoted, Jim. I thought you could help me with that. I'm like, I can, but I can't do it until we know why you want to do it, and what you're going to
Yes.
do with it when you get it. Well, that's the
Yes.
inside out way. And people
Yes.
who take that path, when they get to where they wanted to go, they're the ones who end up saying, "This is the greatest day of my life. This is what I was born to do. This is every day
Yes.
is an adventure for me now." All of that. But you can't get
Absolutely.
there outside in. It won't take
No.
You got to go the other way, inside out.
Because the outside will never be enough to
That's
to
right.
to to
That's right.
meet what you wanted on the
Exactly.
inside.
Exactly.
So it doesn't work the other way around.
Or even if it does work for 5 minutes, then the external
Yes.
requirements will change.
Yes.
Oh God, now I got to do that too.
Yeah.
It's a never ending
Absolutely. To
thing. And
keep it to
that's right.
it's too much. It's too much. So yeah, I love that the working from the inside out, because yeah, you have to know why you want something. It can't just be a, well, I want it.
Or I want more money, or I want to be more successful, or I want the prestige of it, or whatever. All of those things won't hold up on the long journey. They may feel cool when you're starting, I want that corner
Yes.
office, or I want that title, or whatever. It can be a personal example too, but they won't sustain. You can't sustain a long journey based on that, because they're not satisfying. It's like eating, junk food your whole life. It just won't take you all the way. You've got to have a sustainable way of feeding your soul, and your
Absolutely.
soul will keep you empowered and motivated and on purpose for a long, long
Absolutely.
time. But
Oh yeah.
you have to redesign the compass you're using to go toward
Yes.
that, go toward purpose in a sense, rather than performance.
Yes. No, I completely agree. I love that. Well, what else can people do if they want to find out more about you, Jim?
Oh gosh, what a nice thing to ask any author when you ask that question. And my answer is always ridiculously simple. First of all, I think I'm basically everywhere on social media, but I'm everywhere on the same name. So it's my name, Jim Huling. So JimHuling, JimHuling. That'll get you the Instagram, the Facebook, the LinkedIn. That will get you to my website is jimhuling.com. So just anything you want, just put in those
Absolutely.
few letters and you'll find me. And I do, as you know so well, my friend, one of my things I'm enjoying right now is that every single day I post some thought
Mm-hmm.
on all the platforms. It's the
Yes.
same thought, by the way. So if you read it one place, don't look for it in the other, because it'll disappoint you. But LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and those platforms. Yeah, but always the same thought. But once every day, I try to put some kind of coaching thought out into the world that I hope is helpful to people. None
Love
are
it.
ever advertisements or anything like that. It's just always, here's something I think might help, or here's something that helps my clients, or here's something that's helped me.
Mm-hmm.
Like this morning, my little meditation on the raindrops filling this bowl. I just hope it's helpful in some way. So if you're
Yeah.
interested in anything from you've heard today, you can find me everywhere, and hopefully there's something out there every single day from me on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll have Jim's links in the information for the
Thank
podcast,
you.
and
Thank you.
definitely follow him, because I love seeing his posts. They're always uplifting and informational, and he's not somebody you're going to follow and get like, quick fix to this thing, or sign up for this
Oh yeah.
program, and I'm going to fix your life in 10 easy
Right.
steps. That's not the kind of coach you're
Uh,
you're gonna find in Jim.
yes,
He's definitely a inspiring guy,
thank you.
and
Appreciate that very much.
I've loved having you here.
Mhm.
um, so is there anything else you have before we go?
Well, anytime you ask a speaker, an author, a question like that, they've
I
got
know.
9 things they could talk about. I, the only thing I wish is we had more time, because I think we have so many things, and perhaps over time we'll have a chance to talk about them. Maybe I leave you with one thought though, and maybe it's a helpful thing. A lot of the work I did as a consultant and a speaker, I got to do in Africa, which is really, as you've always heard, a magical place. Some
I
say where all of life
love
began, right?
I love Africa. It is one of my
It's
favorite
it's
places. I have
incredible, and
been many times.
the people there changed me, and I had many trips there, and I spoke and worked with many people and organizations, and so anyway, it was a significant chapter in my life, the work I got to do there. But the thing I wanted to leave your listeners with, perhaps, is one of the small gifts that the people I worked with in Uganda sent me home with the last time I was there, which turned out to be my last trip to Africa, and it was in the form of an old African proverb, and the
Mhm.
proverb says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
Oh,
And it just, I mean, every time
I've
I say
heard
that,
that.
I get emotional about this. It's such a deep teaching here. But I think of all the things you and I have talked about today, this is a good wrap up thought is it's
Mm-hmm.
easy to want to go fast, and it's easy
Yeah.
to forget about the people involved or do it in a certain way or cut a corner here and there or do something you're not proud of. It's easy to go fast, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also incredibly lonely to try to do
Yeah.
something on your own. And most of us can't sustain it. We're as we've said already today a couple of times, we're creatures of community. So the better path is let's go together, so have a friend, have a mentor, have a podcast host who you trust and value, like the one I'm looking at right now, and gather those people around you, and be willing to make the journey together. That's a powerful idea, and that's honestly what I'm working with in my own life right now, to say, how can I be a builder of communities of people who
Yes.
want to take a journey together and learn from each other and be patient with each other and listen to each other, and in the end arrive not alone but together. So maybe that proverb is a good place
I
for you
love
to
that. I
finish
have
today.
heard that before. I love that. And we're gonna have to talk again now because I didn't realize that Africa was one of your favorite places too, because I love Africa. I haven't spent as much time in Uganda, but Rwanda, Kenya,
Mm.
East Africa, I've spent.
Wow.
If you could see my bookcases right now,
And
all the things I've brought back from Africa.
oh, conversation then for today.
So, yes, we will definitely have to talk about Africa sometime very
Thank
soon.
you for
But thank you so much for being here, Jim. And I just want to thank everybody for listening. This is Desirie Parker with Empower Together. Please listen, subscribe, and see all of Jim's links in the information. And we will talk again soon. Thank you.